Hello, everybody. You're on the mic. And before we continue on, the first thing I'd like to do is wish to our friends north of the border. I'd like to wish them a happy Canada Day, as it is Canada Day today up in Canada. So, I'd like to wish you all a happy Canada Day. I understand that Chrysidia Holmes and Mr. Hop will be doing a special Knucklehead stream starting around 2 p.m. Pacific, 3 Central, so on and so forth. You guys want to also go check that out um, in celebration. So, without no further ado, let's move on to what we're going to cover today. Now that I've got that out of the way. So, as a follow up to the video I did yesterday, there's another development that happened. As I was watching Hirohei's videos earlier today, came across a story about now the Japanese Seiryu who voices Shinji Ikari has come out and apparently started calling Hollywood out for its hypocrisy as she was kind of mentioning how the stereotyping of cast roles would even put her out of work because she's somebody who is known for doing the voices of teenage boys. Aside from Shinji, of course, she's also done the roles of Karama in Yu Yu Hakusho. I think there's a few others that she's done, but she's pretty much well known for doing some teenage boys. And the thing is, this is a woman doing this. This isn't a guy doing this. This is a woman doing this. And that does remind me of another possible scenario. There are a number of voice actors and actresses. There's a number of voice actresses over here in the States who also have been known over the years to have done roles of young boys. Will they give up those roles as well? Now many of them haven't even been talking. Haven't said much about any of the stuff that's going on over the back. I'm talking about people like Mona Marshall, who of course most notably was the voice of Kite in many of the Dot Hack Sign games. Brianna Sedal, who was the voice of Tsukasa from Dot Hack Sign, and has done, and as well as I know she did let's see, can't remember the character's name right now, but it was from Outlaw Star. It's from a similar story. I think Hawkins. I think he voiced Hawkins, I believe, or she voiced Hawkins. Brianna Sedal. There are even a number of dub voice actors who've done a number of prepubescent boys. Do they now lose their jobs just so we can bring in prepubescent boys to voice those characters? Wendy Lee, Monica Rial, Lucy Christian, Michelle Ruff. Many of these individuals have done the voices of young boys. Do they now, for the sake of some whatever type of correctness you want it to be, whether it's or accuracy you want it, do they now all lose their lead roles because now now this push to where we got to make everything realistic, do they now all lose those roles in order so we can bring in young boys to voice young boys? Do we bring in young girls to voice young girls? Nobody seems to be talking about that. So the guy who was the voice of Cleveland, he no longer he decides he's going to step down because he's white, voicing a black character. And we've heard some other people come out and do pretty much the same thing. I think one of the in fact, one of the points, that Megumi Ogata was even pointing out was, I think there's a character, I think it may have been in Family Guy, I believe, where there's a Asian American character by the name of Trish who is being voiced by a white voice actress. You know, should she step down so they can bring in a Asian American voice actress? You know, Megumi Ogata was even saying that if they go this route, she'd actually end up losing a lot of work. And I'm sure some of the voice actresses I mentioned here would lose some work because of this. Social justice, political correctness, this stuff is just outrageous. It's outrageously ridiculous. Most people, when they're watching cartoons and animes, I don't really, unless there are people like myself who actually take notice of the voice actors behind the screen. But even I don't care if the person's white or black or whatever. Okay? Most people don't care. They watch cartoons and animes, they read comics and manga to escape the BS that is out there. Nobody wants to look into whether it's a TV screen or a movie screen or a computer screen to mirror the stupidity and insanity that's out there. I like watching slice of life harem animes because, yeah, I know a lot of stuff that's the chances of a guy being able to live with 5 women and have them all interested and have them like form into one, even though we do actually have people out there who actually are legitimately trying, okay, but to see those kind of relationships started, or even if it's the other way, one girl and 3 to 5 guys. That might not be reality, but that's a nice fantasy to go to. Watching a bunch of 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds get into giant robots and going out and kicking butt, showing that they're more capable than their real world counterparts. That's a nice thing to have to watch. Watching a young man pursue his dream despite the fact of growing up in a village that is scared of him because he's got some kind of demon inside of him. Watching him grow and mature, and watching another similar character do much of the same thing, and watching them mature, that's a nice thing to watch. When people watch anime and cartoons, when they watch a movie, when they watch a television program, when they read a comic book or a manga or a comic strip in a newspaper, and I know probably not a lot out there doing that last part. Maybe those of you who are a little bit older. When we go into our entertainment, we do not need to be reminded of the stupidity and insanity that's out there. And I think Megumi Ogata was even pointing that out with some of her comments. And what they were talking about, even what I was talking about yesterday with the cultural bakumatsu, in which these a lot of these woke idiots trying to force Japan to conform to their ideology and I really do hope that the Japanese creative community stands up and fights this tooth and nail. I applaud them for not bending the knee and for standing up and saying we have to preserve all our culture. Even if you start having more and more, Western money coming in for anime and manga. Because that's what brought you to the dance in the first place. Most anime and manga fans are anime and manga fans because they like what the Japanese have been producing. They haven't interjected politics into it. They've done a lot of good storytelling about how people relate to each other. And yes, sometimes some of it's silly and some of it's even suggestive. So what? If anything, that's actually a good thing. Somewhat serves as an outlet for maybe some of those impulses. A positive outlet. I know people will sit here and think, "Oh, I'm talking about the fan." I'm not necessarily talking about the fan service. I'm talking about how the characters relate to one another, particularly in the harem animes. I'm talking about the relational interactions. Those are some very positive relational interactions, even if they're not considered "quote unquote" normal. Yeah, I kind of went off on it. Well, it's not really a tangent because it is interconnected with what I've talked about the last couple of days here. And Megumi Ogata's comments are kind of connected to what I was talking about yesterday about the idea that how the Japanese don't want this Western intrusion or invasion into their culture, this cultural bakumatsu. So I think I've talked enough about that stuff. Um, you know, but to our Japanese friends out there, our Japanese friends and fellow fans of anime and manga, I hope you do realize that most of us like what you do and are very appreciative of the work and you put into it. We do not want you to change anything. It's just the very loud shouts of a small minority of people who think they know what people want or what people should have. You know what brought you to the dance, and you know what works. And so do many of us. And I hope you will continue. And I hope you will fight to the bitter end and not let, whether it's the SJWs here in the West or the totalitarian Chinese over in China, force you to change. Because if you were forced to change, that would be a big disappointment. Do not let anyone tell you how or what to write or create. That is your creation. And in the end, your true fans will support you. So that's all for that. That's all I want to get off my chest about that. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Nice little follow up to yesterday's story. Shinji Ikari calls out Hollywood's hypocrisy. That's going to be an interesting title. So, with that being said, without no further ado, let's take a look at this day in Nietzsche history. Let's take a look at some positive stuff. Rather have me like get all upset and all this. Let's take a look at some positive stuff here. July 1st. Today is July 1st, 2020. So let's look back on this day in Nietzsche history. First off, we go all the way back to 1950 as July 1st, 1950 proved to be a day of debuts. As 4 comics made their now 2 of them, of course, only lasted for 1 issue, but the um, other two did have some good runs. Prize, Novelty, and Fox Publications, all Prize Comics, Novelty Comics, and Fox Publications all had some debuts. Prize on this date in 1950, Prize Comics debuted Black Magic. Black Magic #1 made its debut on this date. Black Magic made its debut on this date in 1950 with issue #1. It would, of course, start out as a bi-monthly anthology. It was basically kind of an occultic horror type anthology. It would last from 1950 to 1962, lasting for 53 issues. It would I think go back and forth between being a bi-monthly and monthly anthology series. Actually, no, it did actually go monthly for a while there. It was primarily a bi-monthly series throughout its existence. Basically an occultic horror type anthology. So that was one of them. The next one I'll talk about is from Novelty Comics. Another bi-monthly title called Gasoline Alley made its debut with issue #1 on this date in 1950. It would start out as a bi-monthly title. It would last until 1954. Started out as for the first 2 issues as a bi-monthly title, but then became a seasonal anthology. This would eventually become, after the first 2 issues, it would become Top Love Stories, which I think throughout its run, whether as Gasoline Alley or as Top Love Stories, would serve as a romance comic. Which back in the 50s, romance comics, whether you want to call them romance comics, love story comics, love comics, whatever, these were very popular comics back in the 50s. Comics that were basically devoted to love stories and the like. And also getting on board with a couple of Fox Publications on this date in 1950 actually had a couple of debut issues, albeit these issues would only last for 1 issue. Range Busters would debut on this date in 1950 for Fox Publication, which was a Western anthology, I believe, or Western feature. And then Revealing Love Stories would also make its debut, another as I said, another love style comic, romance type comic that were very popular back in the 50s. So, on this date in 1950, you had four debuts: Black Magic, Gasoline Alley, Range Busters, and Revealing Love Stories would all make their debuts on this date in 1950. Okay, now moving ahead 20 years into the future here. On this date in 1970, which is of course 50 years ago today, the cartoon Where's Huddles premiered, albeit it only ran for 10 episodes. So, Where's Huddles was a short animated cartoon series that ran for only one season for 10 episodes from July 1st, 1970 to September 2nd, 1970. So it was kind of a fill-in show for the summer of the, going from the 69-70 to the 70-71 television year. It concerned the misadventures of a football team, the Rhinos quarterback Ed Huddles, his wife Marge, Ed's best friends Bubba McCoy and Freight Train, his his coach Mad Dog Maloney. Comic relief was played by Ed's nasty neighbor Claude uh, Pertwee, or Pet, let's see, yeah, Pertwee, and his spoiled cat Beverly. Um, Claude Pertwee was voiced by Paul Lynde. Um, Fumbles the dog was voiced by Don Messick. Of course, Don Messick was known for playing a number of dogs in a number of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, including Astro from the Jetsons, Muttley from Wacky Races, and most notably Scooby-Doo from Scooby-Doo. Also, several members of the Flintstones voice cast also cast characters in this show, including Alan Reed, who voiced Fred Flintstone in the Flintstones, was Coach Maloney here. Mel Blanc voiced Bubba here, who was of course known as Barney Rubble, and Gene Vanderpill, who provided the voice of Wilma Flintstone in the Flintstones, was Marge. So yeah, so um, so that happened in 1970. So now, as we move ahead in time to 1995, on this date in 1995, from the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, ECW would hold its Hardcore Heaven event on this date in 1995. In the main event of the show, you saw Public Enemy defeat the Gangsters. And some of the big matches on the undercard would include the Sandman, accompanied to the ring by Woman, the late Nancy Benoit, retaining his ECW World Heavyweight Championship from Cactus Jack. In a battle of the tag team known as Bad Breed, the brother duo of Axel and Ian Rotten, Axel would defeat Ian in a Taipei death match. Raven and Stevie Richards, accompanied ring by Beulah McGillicuddy, would retain the ECW World Tag Team Championships over Tommy Dreamer and Luna Vachon. Paulie Dangerously would lead Taz in a match in which he would actually lose to Too Cold Scorpio. And the opening match on the night, Dudley and Snot Dudley, led to the ring by Big Dick Dudley, would defeat the Pitbulls, led to the ring by the rest of Raven's Nest, Beulah McGillicuddy, Raven, and Stevie Richards. And of course, that was from 15 years ago. That was from, I'm sorry, not 15, but 25 years ago in 1995. 15 years ago from the last one. No, actually 25. Yeah, so 25 years ago. I'm sorry. Oh, anyways, and finally, on this date in 2006, there were two significant premieres. Tsuyo Kiss, um, the anime based on the original game, on its original game, would premiere in Japan on this date in 2006. Also on this date in 2006, running for exactly 1 year, 52 episodes, premiere as I mentioned yesterday. It would actually end its run on June 30th of 2007, but also would would premiere on this date in 2006, Powerpuff Girls Z. So, with all that being said now, if you guys would like to contact me directly, my Discord is in the link section. You can direct message me there and check out the Discord if you like. I'm still promoting a bunch of different dub companies. I am also still promoting Vic's GoFundMe as well as the extension of the Indiegogo project of That Umbrella Guy and Little Umbrella Girl. As always, guys, if you guys would like to donate, okay, never feel like you have to, okay. If it's on your heart to do so and you guys have the means to do so, please consider donating. If you have already donated, please consider donating again. And if you cannot donate, you can still help out the causes by sharing the link. Because sharing is caring. You never know. Maybe somebody in your circle of friends would like to help out. Doesn't hurt to ask, after all. And if you like this comment, I please ask that you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I always look forward to the conversation with you guys as long as civil and respectful. And as another little reminder here, I would also like to just remind you that, of course, Friday is the next voice actor profile premiere. This week I'll be highlighting the VA career of Calgary-based voice actress Meredith Taylor Perry. I hope you guys will join me for that. And I will also be doing my next trial stream this Sunday, and I hope you guys will come check that out. I'm coming pretty close to an idea of what I'll talk about on that stream. So until tomorrow, guys, bye.